Okay. So students, in the last session, we have seen that what is exactly distributed system, right? So anyone from those who are attending the last lecture, please tell me what is meant by distributed system. Yes, anyone? Those who are attending the last lecture, please tell me what is meant by distributed system. Yes. Gauri, you are attending the last lecture. Okay. Okay, fine. It's okay. So distributed system, see guys this diagram. Distributed system contain multiple sites, okay, and that are physically separated. Main thing is these are physically or geographically separated but linked together using this communication network. So distributed system means what? Distributed system contain multiple sites, okay, and that sites are physically or geographically separated, but they are linked together using this communication network. So that is nothing but the distributed system. Okay. So already I have discussed that internet, intranet, your social media, Facebooks, all these are categorized under distributed system. So internet is a very distributed, is also one of the very good example of distributed system. Okay, so user at any location in the network can share their emails, file transfer by using that World Wide Web. Okay, so internet is also one of the best example of distributed system. Then intranet. Okay, so intranet is a small part of the internet, right? So belonging to the some organization separately, these are administered to enforce the local security policy. So nowadays in every IT companies or any organization, so they're having their own administration for the enforcing the local security policy. So this intranet is also one of the best example of distributed system. Also the many small and portable devices. So you all are nowadays, any person can be using that mobile device, right? So these are integrated with the distributed system. So mobile user can easily use the resources are available on the network and the services available on the internet. So that's why these are also categorized under distributed system. Okay. So already we have seen that what is meant by distributed system, and basically they are having two types of transactions we are going to perform on distributed system. So it consists of two transactions, local transaction and global transaction. So what is meant by local transaction? So means, see, your request is processed on the same system. Your request is processed on the same system, means your database is available on that same site. So that is called as a local transaction. Means if you have an account at the SBI bank and you are going to process, suppose withdraw money, is your account, SBI account in the Pandarpur branch. and you can go to the Pandharpur branch and you can fill up that slip and you can withdraw the money. Means your database is available on that side, and means actually the transaction is initiated in the Pandharpur branch and your database is available at there. Right. So that transaction is called as a local transaction. Then global transaction means what? Suppose a person A wants to transfer a money to person B. A person having an account in the SBI bank and person B having an account in the IDBI bank. So that time, what the transaction can access the data from the different site. Okay, so where the transaction was not initiated, and you want to access the data from other side. So such type of transactions are called global transaction. So keep it in mind. So I think it is all clear to all. In a distributed system, they are having two types of transaction, local and global transaction. Okay, so why the reason behind the distributed system? Why this distributed database system concept is introduced? What is the reason behind that? Anyone? Already in the yesterday I am explained that things. So anyone can be said what are the reason behind introducing the distributed database system concept? Anyone? What are the reasons? Yes? Dipti? Bhaskar, I think you are already in the last lecture, you are attended the lecture, attended. Gauri. So what are the reason behind introducing the distributed database system concept? Guys, am I audible? Am I audible? See, I need a response from your side, guys. Yes, Gauri? I need a response from your side. Okay. See, guys, it's need a two-way communication. Okay, so why this distributed database system concept is introduced? Because the main first reason is sharing a data. First reason is what? Sharing a data, right? So through the intercommunication network, okay, so you can share the data from one side to other side. Okay, then next is what? Autonomy. So autonomy means so that side having their own control, means for example in the distributed system having three sides. Okay, every side having their own database administrator, and that database administrator is responsible for that entire system. Okay, so that's why the autonomy is one of the most part. This is a part of this responsibility is given to the local database administrator for each site. For example, already in the last lecture we have seen one example for that. That is what? SBI Bank. SBI Bank having three sites, okay, three branches, and these three branches are interconnected with each other. Okay, so every sites having their database administrator, and the database administrator having the control over that system. Okay, so that is autonomy. And the third reason is what? Availability. Okay, for example, if any one of the sites their transaction and site is failed, so other side can take over its work. Okay, and by using other side you can perform the transaction. So that is availability is the third reason for introducing the distributed database system concept. Okay, so then in the last lecture we have seen that they are having two types of distributed databases. Okay, first is a homogeneous and second is a heterogeneous. Okay, so if any one of the participant, please tell me what is meant by homogeneous distributed database. Anyone, please put it into the comment box. I am not given a name of any student. Those who are present in this today's session, so please answer me what is meant by homogeneous distributed database. Yes, anyone? Write it into the comment box. Yes? Yes? See guys, first of all, let me clear that. Please feel free if you have any doubt, if any one of the concept is not understood, please feel free and ask me or interrupt me. I will explain it. Okay. All sites use the same OS and DBMS. Yes. Yes, Jaydeep. Right. So homogeneous distributed database means what? So whatever the sites in your distributed database architecture, so all the sites having identical software and schema. Okay. For example, in the SBI, 3 branches, Pandharpur, Solapur and Pune. So all the branches having same identical software. For example, in the Pandharpur branch having the Oracle. So Solapur and Pune branch are also having Oracle software. Okay, so that is nothing but the homogeneous distributed database. Okay, so all the sites having identical software and schema are aware of each other and agree to cooperate in the processing the user request. Okay, so all the sites having identical software, so that's why all the sites are cooperate with each other for the processing the user request. Okay, so each sites can surrender the part of its autonomy. Autonomy means already I am talking about that every sites having their database administrator control. Okay, so all the sites having identical software and schema. So in this type of distributed database, the database administrator can surrender the part of its autonomy. Okay, then it's appear to user as a single system. Then next is a heterogeneous. Okay, so heterogeneous means different sites may use different schema and software. Means for example, Pandharpur branch having the Oracle, Pune branch having MySQL, and Solapur branch having SQL Server. Means every site having different software and different schema is there, right? So that is called as a heterogeneous distributed database. Okay, so because of different software and different schema, they are having major problem in the query processing and the transaction processing. Okay, so due to different schema, means one side having Oracle, one side having MySQL, other side having the server. So that's why it's difficult pre-processing and the transaction processing. Okay. Aware of each other. See, here suppose each side can surrender the part of it. In this case, one minute. Someone can interrupted Okay. I think Akshada Deshpande, your mic is on. Akshada. Okay. Okay, fine. So, in a heterogeneous distributed database, okay, side may not be aware of each other, means they don't interfere with each other. Their side, their database administrator having their own control, okay, and only limited facility for the cooperation in the transaction processing. Because of every side having the different schema, different software, the database administrator, each side having their own database administrator and control on that database. So that's why the site may not be aware of each other, and they may not be they can provide only limited facility for the cooperation. But in case of homogeneous, all the site having the identical software and schema, so all the sites are aware with each other and they are cooperate with each other. But in case of heterogeneous, they are not aware of the sites are not aware of each other, and they may provide the limited facility for the cooperation in the transaction processing. Okay, so already in the last lecture we have seen that in the distributed database the data are stored, data storage, how the data can be stored. Okay, so they are having, by using two approaches, store the data into the distributed database. They're having two approaches. By using these two approaches, the data is stored in the distributed database. So which are these? Anyone? Which are these two approaches? Which are these two approaches? Yes, anyone? Please put it into the, yes, homogeneous. No. These are the types of distributed database. But how the data is stored? By using two ways. Anyone? No, Jaydeep. Homogeneous and heterogeneous, these are the types of distributed database. But in the distributed database, how the data is stored? Storage of the data. Anyone? Yes, Aishwarya, Vivek, Bhaskar. Yes, anyone? Okay. Okay, no problem. So the data storage in distributed database, the data is stored by using two ways. The first one is what? First one is replication. First one is what? Replication. And the second one is what? Fragmentation. Second one is what? Fragmentation. So in the distributed database, the data storage having two approaches. How the data is stored in distributed database. So they are having two approaches. The first one is a replication. So what is meant by replication? The system maintains several identical replicas. You can say that copy, okay, of the relation and store each replica at different, okay, see guys, in distributed data storage, the first type of storage is what? Replication. First type of storage is what? Replication. Pranesh Sutar, your mic is on. Pranesh Sutar, your mic is on. Okay, so the first type of data storage is what? How the data is stored in the distributed database, that is replication. So what is meant by replication? The system maintain several identical replicas or several identical copies, and these can be stored, these replica, at a different site. Okay, for example, Pandharpur branch database. Their replicas are also available in Pune and Solapur branch. Okay, so that is nothing but what? Replication. So what is meant by replication? So system maintain same identical or several identical replicas of that data, and that replicas are stored in all at a different sites. How many sites are available in that network? So every sites, their replicas, copies are available in all other sites. So that is nothing but the replication. This is the first type of data storage. Okay. Then the second, fragmentation. Second type of data storage is what? Fragmentation. Means fragments means you have to partition the relation means what? Your database into several fragment and store each fragment at a different site. For example, already in the last lecture we have seen that again fragmentation having two types: vertical fragmentation and horizontal fragmentation. Okay, so how these, for example, consider the example of table, employee table. Okay, so in that employee table you can horizontally fragment and vertically fragment, and that fragmented copy can be stored at the different sites. So see guys that here, so in the replication, full replication, when a full copy, full replication, a copy is stored in every sites in the system. म्हणजे पंढरपूर ब्रांचला सोलापूर आणि पुणे ब्रांचचा पण डेटा असणार. सिमिलरली पुणे ब्रांचला सोलापूर आणि पंढरपूर ब्रांचचा डेटा असणार. So that is a full replication. A copy is stored in every sites in the system. So what is the main advantage? Obviously that is availability. For example, if you have to perform a transaction on the Pandharpur branch account holder, but now the Pandharpur side is having some problem. Pandharpur side having some problem. So that time the replica copy is available at the Pandharpur side. So means that is availability, and you can perform a transaction whether that side is fell. Okay, if one of the side containing a relation R fell, okay, the relation R can be found on the other side, because Pandharpur database replica copy is available in the Pune side also. So by using that replica copy, they can perform a transaction. Means that is a advantage point, that is availability. Okay, so availability is one of the advantage point of the replication. Then increased parallelism. Okay, by using parallelly you can perform the many transactions. Okay, in the case where the majority of the access of that particular relation and reading that particular data by the several side, and you can process that query by involving the parallel. Okay, so obviously increase the parallelism. So this is a second advantage. See guys, replication means the replica copy are available at the all other sites. Okay, so what is the main advantage point of this replication data storage? That is availability, and by using that you can increase the parallelism, means execution speed is increase the parallelism. Okay, and what are the disadvantage of this replication? That is increased overhead on update. Okay, so already I am talking about that one example in the Pandharpur sites having some problem, but we are going to perform a transaction on the Pandharpur side account holder. Okay, but Pandharpur side is now side having some problem, but that Pandharpur side database is available. Replica copy is available at the Pune. So that time what happened? So in the Pune side data, they can perform that transaction in the replica copy. But after performing that transaction, the updation can be done in all other side. Okay, updations are also happen in the all other side. So this is a disadvantage. So increase the overhead of update. Okay, so when you performing the transaction, so after performing the transaction, the updation can be occur in the replica copy of all other side. Updation can be occur on the replica copy of all other side. Okay, so this is a disadvantage. So the system must ensure that all the replicas of the data means relation are, all these are the consistent means updated. When you performing a transaction, जी तुमच्या साईडला रेप्लिका कॉपी अवेलेबल आहे दुसऱ्या ब्रांचची, तर ती कन्सिस्टंट म्हणजे अपडेटेड आहे का. ओके, अदरवाइज जर अपडेटेड नसेल आणि तुम्ही त्याच्यावरती ट्रान्झॅक्शन परफॉर्म करायला गेला, सो अदरवाइज so error computation may be occur. So whenever R is updated, the update must be propagated to all sites containing the replica. किंवा तुम्ही एखादं ट्रान्झॅक्शन त्याच्यावरती परफॉर्म केलं, तर आफ्टर कमिट देअर अपडेशन मस्ट बी प्रोपॅगेटेड. जसं त्या मेन टेबल मध्ये जे तुमचं अपडेशन झाले, तसं सेम रेप्लिका कॉपी मध्ये सुद्धा अपडेशन झालं पाहिजे. Okay, so whenever you can update any data, the update must be propagated to all the sites containing replica. जेवढ्या साइट्स आहेत आणि ज्या साइटला ती रेप्लिका कॉपी अवेलेबल आहे, त्या रेप्लिका कॉपी मध्ये सुद्धा you need to update. Okay, and whenever before performing a transaction on the replica copy, you must ensure that that replica copy is consistent. Okay, means before performing a transaction, you can ensure that that replica copy is consistent, and after performing a transaction, the update must be propagated on the all the sites of the all the sites of containing replica. Okay, so this is a disadvantage of the replication. Then the second type of the storage, that is fragmentation. So already we have seen that. So they are having basically two types of fragmentation. Horizontal fragmentation means you can split your relation by assigning the each tuple, okay, into the R1, R2, R3 into the more fragment. Okay, and vertical fragmentation means what? So you can split the relation by decomposing the schema R of the relation R. So see guys, here I am going to give one example. Already I am talking about that. So see, so this is a table. Okay, one relation, one table is there. So the employee table is there. This is the ID of that employee, name of that employee, in which department that employee is working, and this is the salary of that employee. So when you horizontally fragment that relation, so you have to think that, so this information is a public information, means name and the department, but the salary is a private information. Salary is what? Private information. So how we can split that horizontal fragmentation? In the first table, the first fragment consists of, so you can see they are having two departments are there. So you can categorize the data department wise. Okay, so these two names can be CSE department, employee name can be put it into the one name, one table, and the ENTC employee name can be put it into the other fragment. Okay, So this is a horizontal fragmentation. See guys, how it can be fragmented according to the department name. Okay, so one can in the one fragment having CSC departmental information, faculty information, and other table having the ENTC department employee information. So this is a horizontal fragmentation. Same vertical fragmentation. See guys at here, in case of vertical fragmentation, same relation is there, but in the vertical fragmentation, you can think that name and the department, this is a public information, so these can be categorized into one fragment, and the salary is a private information. So the ID and their salary. Okay, so this is a second fragment. Okay, and all these fragments can be replicated in all other side. Okay, see, replication and fragmentation both are combined, means after fragmenting that relation, their fragments can be stored into the all other side. Similarly, their replicas are also stored into the all other sides. Okay, so that is a mixed with the replication and fragmentation. Mixed with replication and fragmentation. See guys, means instruction relation R is horizontally fragmented, and fragment relation and replicated at the several site. म्हणजे हे फ्रॅगमेंट केल्यानंतर त्याच्या रेप्लिकाज आर ऑल्सो स्टोर्ड इनटू द ऑल अदर साइड. ओके, सो लाइक दिस वे द डेटा स्टोरेज can be happen in the distributed database. Okay, so these are the data transparency means what? Degree to which system user is unaware of the details. जो कोणी user त्या system वरती काम करणार आहे. Okay, so it might be a bank, suppose bank employee. So that bank employee can access that data for performing a transaction. So that bank user is unaware of how and where the data items are stored and in a distributed system. नेमका कसा कुठे कसा डेटा स्टोर झालाय हे युजरला काही माहित नसतं. म्हणजे त्याच्या रेप्लिका झालाय का, व्हर्टिकल झालंय, हॉरिझॉन्टली झालंय का, रेप्लिकेशन, हाऊ द डेटा इज stored and where it is the original data. So all that things are hidden from the user. All that information is hidden from the user. Okay, so they're having two types of transparency: fragmentation transparency, replication transparency, and the location transparency. So fragmentation transparency means what? User must not know how the relation is fragmented. मी आता सांगितलं, युजरला काही माहित नसतं की तो हॉरिझॉन्टली फ्रॅगमेंट झालाय का व्हर्टिकली फ्रॅगमेंट झालाय, त्याची ओरिजिनल कॉपी कुठे का आपल्याकडे आहे ती रेप्लिका कॉपी आहे. सो ऑल दॅट थिंग्स आर हिडन फ्रॉम द युजर. सिमिलरली रेप्लिकेशन. सो युजर व्यू इच डेटा आयटम ॲज अ लोकली युनिक. कुठे तुम्ही त्या ठिकाणी बसले की तुम्हाला सगळ्या साईटचा डेटा युनिक असल्यासारखा यू कॅन व्यू दॅट इच डेटा, बट द सिस्टीम रेप्लिकेट increase either means data availability is one of the advantage point of the replication, but user must not know what data item are replicated or where the replica have been placed. पण युजरला हे माहित नसतं की कुठला डेटा आपल्याकडे जी कॉपी आहे ती रेप्लिका कॉपी आहे का, आपल्याकडे जी कॉपी आहे ती ओरिजिनल कॉपी आहे, किंवा आपल्याकडे ओरिजिनल डेटा स्टोर आहे का दुसरीकडे कुठला दुसऱ्या साईडला ओरिजिनल डेटा स्टोर आहे का, किंवा whether when we performing that transaction in the replica copy or original copy, all that things are hidden from the user. Okay, so that is the replication transparency. And the location transparency, user are not required to know the physical location of the data. नेमका डेटा कुठे ठेवला ह्याची युजरला काही म्हणजे माहिती, they are going to only perform a transaction. Okay, so user are not required to know the physical location of data. नेमका ओरिजिनल डेटा कुठे स्टोर आहे फिजिकली हे युजरला माहित नसते. This is a location transparency. Okay, so the next point in this chapter, that is naming of data atom. So when you store that replica copy or fragmented copy in the all other side, so you must have given a unique name to that replica copy or fragmented copy. See guys, so when you stored data atom, it might be a relation, it might be a fragment, it might be a replica. Okay, but when you store that replica, fragment or relation, you must have to given a unique name. That is a naming scheme. Okay, you can give the unique name to that data atom. Okay, so no two sites can use the same name for the distinct data atom. वेगवेगळे डेटा आयटम आहेत, पण त्या वेगवेगळ्या डेटा आयटमला तुम्ही सेम नाव देऊ शकत नाही दोन साइडला. ओके, एकच एक युनिक नेम यू कॅन गिवन टू दॅट data atom. So it should be possible to find the location of data atom efficiently. So that why you can given the unique name. So by using that you can easily access that data, or you can easily efficiently access that data, and by using that we are going to perform that transaction. If you have to given the same name to two data atom, so when you're accessing that data, so which data atom can be accessed? Okay, so it should be possible to change the location of the data atom transparently. So that's why you need to give the unique name to data atom. So data atom might be a relation, data atom might be a fragment, data atom might be a replica copy. So whatever it, you can give the unique name to that data atom. Then moving to the next point, that is centralized scheme, name server. Okay, so here the first centralized scheme, how we can give in the name server. So first one is a structure. All the name to be registered in a central name server. जे काही तुम्ही नाव द्याल, रेप्लिका कॉपीला असेल किंवा फ्रॅगमेंट कॉपी असेल किंवा रिलेशन असेल, सो द नेम इज रजिस्टर. जे काही तुम्ही नाव देणार आहात ते पहिलं रजिस्टर करा. कुठे? इन अ सेंट्रल नेम सर्व्हर. Okay, and ensure that the same name does not get used for the different data atom. एकदा तुम्ही register केलं की this can be assigned to that particular data atom. So no one can be given the same name, right? So that's why before given the unique name to data atom, first you can register it into the central name server. Okay, and you can ensure that whatever the name you can given to that data atom, that name does not get used in different data atom. So all of you are getting this? Whatever I am saying? Yes, put it into the comment box, yes or no. It's clear? Before, in the data atom might be a relation, data atom might be a fragment, data atom might be a replica. Okay, so whatever it may be, त्या replica copy असेल, fragment copy असेल किंवा तुमचं data असेल, त्याला नाव हे तुम्हाला you must have to given in the unique name. Okay, and before given the name to that data atom, the name must be registered in a central name server. एक नेम सर्व्हर असणार आहे, त्या नेम सर्व्हर मध्ये सगळ्या डेटा आयटमची नावं ऑलरेडी रजिस्टर केली असतात. And ensure that, so whatever the name has to be given to that data atom, that name does not used for different data atom. Okay, so that's why before given the name, you first register into the central name server. Okay, so each site maintain a record of local data atom. प्रत्येक साइट त्याचं रेकॉर्ड मेंटेन करेल. पंढरपूर साइड मेंटेन देअर पंढरपूर डेटा. ओके, पुणे साइड they can maintain their data. Solapur side they can maintain their data. So each side maintain a record of their local data atom. So we can also use the name server to locate a data atom given the name of the atom. So when you given the name, So in the centrally, they are having name server. First, you have to register that name into the central name server, and then you can ensure that if anyone can be given the same name to the different data item, so you can't give that. You must given a unique name to your data item. Okay. So what are the advantage? Why you can given the unique name? So data item will have the unique name. Find the location of the data item using that name server. Okay. So change the location of the data item, transparency. And what are the disadvantage? Each site cannot create a new data item autonomously. Okay. So if whether that same name data item is available, okay, so they not create the new data item of that same type, and the name server may become a performance bottleneck. Again, you can wait for, again you can register and wait and check that whether that the name can be given in the previously data item or not. Again, they're having the means you can wait for some time. So again, they're having a problem of the performance bottleneck. Okay. So this is a disadvantage of the name server. And if the name server is crashed, centrally आपण म्हणतोय की एक name server असणार आहे, तिथं आपण सगळी whatever the name has to be given to that data item, it is centrally first we have to register that. But if the name server is crashed, okay, if the name server is crashed, name server जर crash झाला, so it may not be possible for any site in the distributed system to continue to run. Okay, because you say that either centrally they're having name server, but that central name server is failed or that central name server is crashed. So it may not be possible for any site in the distributed system to continue to run. So that's why this is the disadvantage of the name server. Then we are going to moving to the next slide. Again, you have to use the alias. Okay. So due to the disadvantage of the name server, what is the disadvantage? If the name server is crash, right? If the central name server is crash, no other side can be they can perform the transaction. So that's why the alternative, they're having one alternative for the name server, that is you can use the aliases. Okay. So each site prefix its own site identifier to any name that it generate, that is suppose site 117 dot account. Okay, suppose they are having a site in that distributed system having multiple site, suppose site number 17. So how we can given the name to that data item? 17 dot account. So same account name can be used in the different site, but before you can write the site name. Okay. So like this way you can give the alias, use the alias. This alias is alternative for name server. So why this alias is introduced? Because of disadvantage of name server. If central name server is crashed, so no other site having the replicas and all that thing, so it is difficult to run. So that's why the alternative for the name server is what? You can use alias. So how it can be used as alias? So before you can given the name to that data item, so you can write some site 17 dot as like this alias. So fulfill having the unique name and avoid the problem associated with the central control. Okay, so due to that reason, you can easily recover the disadvantage of the name server. So however, fail to achieve the location transparency. So what is the solution for that? Create the set of aliases for the data item, store and mapping the aliases on the real name at each site. So user can aware of the physical location, you know that. So you can given the site 17. Okay, so site 17 having the, they know that our site is site number 17. So the user can unaware of the physical location of the data item and unaffected the data item is moved from the one site to other. So that is the solution for that alias. So why this alias concept is introduced? Because of the disadvantage of the name server. If the central name server is crashed, okay, so central name server is crashed. So it is difficult, it may not be possible for the any sites in the distributed system to continue to run. Okay, and again they're having the performance of the bottleneck, so that's why you can use the alias alternative to name server. Okay, now we are going to moving the one of the most important concept, that is distributed transaction. So how the transaction are performed in distributed database environment. Okay, you said that how the data is storing into the distributed database in the by using two format, that is replication and fragmentation. But when you performing a transaction, okay, suppose on that data, so how the transaction is performed, because it is fragmented in the all other side, त्याचे तुकडे झालेत ते वेगवेगळ्या ठिकाणी स्टोर आहेत. But when you performing a transaction, how the transaction is performed in the distributed database environment. So see guys, so one of the most important point, distributed transaction. So when you access the data item in distributed system, it accomplished through the transaction that is local and global. So already we have seen that in the distributed database, they're having two types of transaction, that is local transaction and global transaction. Okay, so when you access the data item in the distributed transaction, तुम्हाला नेमकं transaction कुठलं करायचंय, so local transaction or whether it is a global transaction. So each site has a local transaction manager. See guys, I am asking to everyone, please be careful whatever I am saying. I am asking after that explaining that concept. Okay, see guys, each site has local transaction manager. बघा मी मगाशी सांगितलं की SBI ब्रांचचे 3 साइट आहेत, एक आहे पंढरपूर साइड, पुणे साइड and the सोलापूर साइड. Every site has local transaction manager. प्रत्येक साइडला एक त्या साइटचा एक लोकल ट्रान्झॅक्शन मॅनेजर असेल. त्याची रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी काय आहे बघा, द रिस्पॉन्सिबल फॉर मेंटेन अ लॉग फॉर रिकव्हरी पर्पज. So whatever the transaction and log in log out for whatever the thing can be done into that system, so that transaction manager having responsibility to maintain log file, to maintain log file. All of you are getting this? Each side, प्रत्येक side ला has local transaction manager, and that transaction manager responsibility is what? They can maintain a log file for recovery purpose. Why that maintain the log file? For recovery purpose. Then coordinate to concurrent execution of the transaction executing at that site. Okay, and that what other responsibility is what? Coordination. Okay, coordinate the concurrent execution of the transaction executing at that site. ज्या साइडला the transactions execution होते त्या साइडला coordinate करणं. So that is the responsibility of that transaction manager. See, whatever I am saying, every site having local transaction manager. And what is the responsibility of that transaction manager? Maintaining a log file. की log file का maintain करायची for the recovery, if any crash and data can be lost and whatever it may be. For the recovery purpose, they can maintain log file. Again, concurrent execution of the transaction, that time the responsibility of the transaction manager is coordinate to that particular site. Okay, so this is the second responsibility of that transaction manager. So each site has a, again, प्रत्येक site like transaction manager असेल आणि एक transaction coordinator असेल. Every site having local transaction manager and transaction coordinator. So what is the responsibility of the transaction coordinator? Starting the execution of the transaction that originate at that site. Okay, so what is the responsibility of that transaction coordinator? Start the execution of that transaction. जिथं इनिशिएट झाले, ज्या साइडला ट्रान्झॅक्शन इनिशिएट झाले त्या साइडचं ट्रान्झॅक्शन start the execution. That is the responsibility of the transaction coordinator. Then distributing sub transaction at appropriate site for the execution. For example, some of the part can be required from the other side. Okay, so distributing the sub transaction for appropriate, ज्या साइड करून तुम्हाला डेटा पाहिजे त्या साइडला ती सब ट्रान्झॅक्शन यू कॅन send to that side, and from that side you are going to perform the execute that transaction. Okay, then coordinating coordinating and the termination of each transaction that originated at that side and which may result in the transaction being committed at all the sites or aborted at all sites. For example, so when you're performing that transaction, okay, when you're performing that transaction, suppose if the transaction is failed, so it can be aborted on the site. सगळ्या साइडला ते abort झालं पाहिजे. If the transaction is successfully executed, okay, so it is committed to all other side. So that is a responsibility of what? That is the responsibility of what? Transaction coordinator. बघा डिस्ट्रीब्युटेड ट्रान्झॅक्शन कसं परफॉर्म होतं. डिस्ट्रीब्युटेड डेटाबेस सिस्टीम environment, how the transaction is performed. Every side having local transaction manager. Every side having local transaction manager. Okay, what is the responsibility of the transaction manager? Maintaining the log file for recovery purpose. जे जे काही त्या ऍक्टिव्हिटी त्या साइडला होतील त्याची लॉग फाईल मेंटेन करणं हे काम कुणाचं आहे? ट्रान्झॅक्शन मॅनेजरचं. Okay, so this is the first responsibility. Then what is the second responsibility? Coordinate concurrent execution of the transaction executing at that site. Suppose सब ट्रान्झॅक्शन आहे आणि त्या सब ट्रान्झॅक्शनला दुसऱ्या साइडचा डेटा लागतोय, so that query can be sending to that side, or you can access that data from the other side. Okay, so the coordination can be done. ते जे काही coordination आहे, that coordination can be done by using transaction manager. So this is the two responsibility of the transaction manager. And again, they're having each side has a transaction coordinator. So what is the responsibility of transaction coordinator? Start the execution. ज्या साइडला ट्रान्झॅक्शन इनिशिएट झालंय. ओके, सो स्टार्टिंग अँड एक्झिक्युशन ऑफ दॅट ट्रान्झॅक्शन ऑफ द ओरिजिनेट ॲट दॅट साइट. ओके, आफ्टर सपोज डिस्ट्रीब्युटिंग सब ट्रान्झॅक्शन इज देअर, so you can transfer that data to appropriate site and you can execute that sub transaction. Okay, and coordinating the terminal of the each transaction, original side, other side, all that coordination can be done by using the transaction coordinator. And whatever the result is done, if the whether that transaction is successfully executed, then committed to all other side. If any one of the side is failed, so it is aborted at all the side. If it is successfully executed, committed to all the side. If any one of the side is failed, it is aborted at all the side. So like this way, this is the responsibility of the transaction coordinator and transaction manager. So see guys here, this is a computer 1 and this is a computer n. This is a side 1 and side 2. Okay, suppose TC1, okay, transaction coordinator 1 can be communicate with the transaction manager. Transaction manager can be communicate with the transaction coordinator, and like this way the transaction can be happen in the distributed database environment. Okay, so now if the system is failed, if any one of the site is failed, so system failure mode, so how it can be work? So distributed system may suffer from the same type of failure as like a centralized system. सपोज ट्रान्झॅक्शन फेल होऊ शकतं, सिस्टीम क्रॅश होऊ शकते किंवा डिस्क फेल होऊ शकते. Okay, what are the failure of the system? Whether that transaction is failed. For example, 3 types of failure are there. If the transaction is failed, second, system is crash. Suppose whole system is crash. Other thing is that disk is failure. Okay, so these are the some system failure mode. Distributed system may suffer some type. This is the same some type of the failure. Which type of failure? If the transaction is failed, okay, when you're executing that transaction, if the transaction is failed, otherwise whole system is crashed or the disk has to be failure. Okay, so now, so additional type of the failure again there have which we need to deal with the distributed environment are failure of side, loss of the message, failure of the communication link, and network partition. So you know that in the distributed database, what is meant by distributed system? Distributed system contain multiple sites. These are physically or geographically diverse in the different part of the cities or country, but they are but they are logically linked with each other through the communication network. तर मग आणखी फेल्युअर काय असू शकतं? नेटवर्क प्रॉब्लेम असू शकतो किंवा तुम्ही पाठवलेला मेसेज एखाद्या मध्येच लॉस झाला, पॅकेट फेल्युअर असेल, फेल्युअर ऑफ द साइट असेल, फेल्युअर ऑफ द कम्युनिकेशन लिंक असेल, ओके, ट्रान्झॅक्शन फेल्युअर असेल, सिस्टीम क्रॅश असेल, डिस्क फेल्युअर असेल. These are the main failure which are transaction failure, system crash आणि disk failure. What are the additional communication link fail म्हणजे नेटवर्क प्रॉब्लेम असेल, लॉस ऑफ द मेसेज सेंड केलाय पण these are not sender can send the message but it is not received in the receiver side, so in between the message is lost, failure of the side and network partition. So these are the some of the types of failure are suffered during performing a distributed transaction. So the first they're having to already we have seen that if the transaction is successfully executed, so there is need a commit, you can commit that transaction. Okay, so see it here, commit protocol. So commit protocol are used to ensure atomicity across the site. Atomicity means what? What is meant by atomicity? Anyone? Yes. What is meant by atomicity? Dipti? Gauri? What is meant by atomicity? Yes. Put it into the comment box. Vaishnavi. Already I am discussed 3 reasons behind introducing the concept of distributed database system architecture. Sharing data, atomicity, and these are the 3 reasons using the distributed architecture. So every side having their local database administrator and the database administrator having their control over that side of that data, right? So that is atomicity. Okay. Atomicity means to all the work in the transaction being means they're having the database administrator, that database administrator having their responsibility to control that data. Okay, so commit protocol across the site. Okay, a transaction which execute at multiple site must either be committed at all the site or aborted at all the site. जर एखादं ट्रान्झॅक्शन मल्टिपल साइडला जर एक्झिक्यूट होत असेल बघा, द ट्रान्झॅक्शन विच एक्झिक्यूट ऍट मल्टिपल साइड, दॅट ट्रान्झॅक्शन मस्ट एकतर ते कमिट झालं पाहिजे किंवा एकतर ते सगळीकडेच कमिट झालं पाहिजे किंवा एका ठिकाणी जरी अबॉर्ट झालं तर इट इज अबॉर्टेड टू ऑल अदर साइड. अ ट्रान्झॅक्शन विच एक्झिक्यूट at multiple side, if the transaction is executed at multiple side, so that must be either committed or either aborted at all the side. Not acceptable to have a transaction committed at one side and aborted at other side. असं accept होणार नाही. एकतर कमिट झालं तर सगळ्या साइडला कमिट होईल, एका साइडला कुठल्या जर अबॉर्ट झालं तर सगळ्या साइडला ते अबॉर्ट होणार आहे. ओके, सो इट इज नॉट acceptable to have a transaction committed at one side and aborted at other side. If any one of the side is aborted, if any one of the side the transaction is aborted, so all other sides are also transaction is aborted. Okay, but once it is executed successfully, so it is committed at all the side. So why this is important? Because the replicas copies are consistent. Replica copies are consistent. So that's why a transaction which execute at multiple side, it must either be committed. It must be either be committed at all the side, okay, or aborted at the all other side. एकतर कमिट झालं तर सगळ्याच साइडला कमिट होईल आणि एका कुठल्या तरी साइडला जरी अबॉर्ट झालं तरी all the sides transaction is aborted. Okay, so it is not acceptable to have a transaction committed at one side and aborted at other side. So that's why the concept is the other protocol is used, two-phase commit protocol. Okay, because of this problem, one side, if we suppose the transaction is committed and other side is aborted, so you can recover that atomicity and you can ensure that atomicity. So the new protocol is introduced, that is two-phase commit protocol is widely used. Okay, again they are having three-phase commit protocol, but it is not used morely. This protocol is not used in the practice, but two-phase commit protocol is used to ensure the atomicity at every side in the distributed database environment. Okay, which protocol? Two-phase commit protocol is widely used. Three-phase commit protocol is also available, but it is more complicated, more expensive, and avoid some drawback of the 2PC. So that's why the 3PC is introduced, but this protocol is not used in the practice. Okay. Nowadays, in the distributed database, two-phase commit protocol is widely used for ensure the atomicity. Okay. So why that 2PC protocol is introduced? Because in the previous already we have seen that commit protocol. So if any one of the side is transaction is committed, other side is aborted. So this is not allowed, because if whether that any one of the side is any one of the side the transaction is aborted, so it is aborted too at all the side. If the successfully executed the transaction in all the side, so it is committed at all the side. So that's why the problem can be recovered for the means the user can ensure the atomicity of their side. The two-phase commit protocol is used. Okay. Again, there have because of some disadvantage of the two-phase commit protocol, three-phase commit protocol is introduced. But three-phase commit protocol It is more complicated. It is more expensive. Okay, and it is practically difficult to implement. This protocol is not used in the practically. So that's why in the distributed database environment, two-phase commit protocol is widely used. Okay, so now we are going to moving to the two-phase commit protocol. Actually, in your syllabus, they're having the first practical session on the two-phase commit protocol. Okay, so how the two-phase commit protocol is work practically, where we are seen by using one example. By using one example, so the first practical session is practically how we are going to implement that two-phase commit protocol. So that that things we are going to see in the afterward. Okay, but before seeing that two-phase commit protocol, you need to know that how the data can be, which are the which type of transaction in the distributed database, what are the different types of the distributed database, homogeneous, heterogeneous transactions are there. Having two types of transactions are performed in the distributed database, that is local transaction and the global transaction. Again, the database storage in the distributed database, that is homogeneous distributed database and the heterogeneous distributed database, and ensure the atomicity of the site. Okay, so the database administrator can perform two-phase commit protocol for what? Ensure the atomicity. Okay, so that's why these two-phase commit protocol is used to ensure that whether that transaction is successfully executed or it is aborted. If it is successfully executed in the all every side, so it can be committed to all the sides. Okay, if any one of the side that transaction is aborted, so it is aborted to all the side. जर एखाद्या साइडला कमिट झाले पण दुसऱ्या साइडला अबॉर्ट झाले, तरी पण सगळ्या साइडला ते ट्रान्झॅक्शन काय होणार आहे? अबॉर्ट होणार आहे. सो हाऊ इट कॅन बी इन्श्योर दॅट by using two-phase commit protocol. Okay, so in the tomorrow's lecture we will see that how the actual implementation of that two-phase commit protocol using example. So this is the first practical of your MDS subject, that is implementation of two-phase commit protocol. Okay, so please am I audible? Am I audible? Okay, okay. Yes. So guys, so why this two-phase commit protocol? Because of if you have to ensuring that at all the side, aborted at all the side. You can. So that's why this two-phase commit protocol is used in the distributed database environment. Implementation we will see in the next lecture. 1 minute.